Hi everyone, my name is Kyle Campbell. I am the founder of CTO.ai, and today I'm going to share a little bit more with you about how we're using insights and data to support your ability to measure the developer experience. This is very important because what your developers experience really drives not only the behaviors, the consistency, and the reliability of your software delivery process. The things that you change along the way can sometimes be very difficult to measure. So with CTO.ai, what we've tried to do is build the world's most data-driven CI/CD platform. You can use us to build, preview, test, and deploy software. And as you do, we bring data to the forefront so that your whole team can make data-driven decisions about developer experience. Today, we're really excited to talk to you about how we've enhanced our core platform with 12 new metrics in addition to DORA metrics, which we're all familiar with. And we're also going to talk a little bit about how this functionality works and a special feature that we call Kudos. Kudos is a way that we use data science to identify across all of your repos changes that are occurring that will allow you to identify the changes that are benefiting your overall software delivery process so you can do more of that with your team. Let's drill in. Okay, so in front of me here, what we have is the CTO.ai dashboard. We call this the Insights dashboard. You can see that we support commands, pipeline services, which are a number of our workflows. Today, we're going to focus in on insights and reports as the main features. We've had the feature for quite a long time that will allow you to measure DORA metrics in real time, measuring metrics like change lead time, deployment frequency, change failure rate, and failed deployment recovery time directly from your CI/CD processes allows you to very quickly understand what's happening across your team. But today we've added 12 new metrics that go beyond these aggregate DORA metrics to help you drill down into understanding some of the collaborative and throughput and process-oriented steps that drive at the outcomes of DORA. The first are throughput metrics. We're now measuring parallel work rate. This is effectively an understanding of how many repos your team members have to work on in parallel to get changes through the process. This is a measure of complexity, an important one to understand as developers work across the lifecycle. Contributions per developer. So this is the average number of contributions per developers across these repos. Time to contribute, first contribution, how often and how quickly do new developers ramp up on new repos, and time to first repo contribution, which is on average between the first activity in a given repo and the first pull request that's recorded in that repo. What we think this really helps is you to understand the complexity of how developers ramp up and work across microservices or mono repos. And this is a measure of complexity within the developer experience that's very important to understanding change lead time, deployment frequency, and also the measure of how much cycle complexity goes into ensuring failures don't happen and you can easily roll back failures. The next set of metrics that we're releasing are collaboration metrics. As we all know, software development's a team sport. And the way that we work together really matters as far as how we're supported throughout the developer experience from code to cloud. So one of the things that we've seen as we've been measuring the software delivery process across many teams is one of the number one things that drive at a higher lead time is time to collaboration and quality of code review. So the first thing within collaboration metrics we're measuring are unreviewed merges. So this is how often are people deploying changes to production that would not be deeply reviewed or not get review from another developer. Obviously, you want to minimize the number of PRs that don't see code review so that nobody's deploying changes by themselves. The next is comments per contribution. So the way you can think about this is the depth or amount of review that goes into your contributions that are going through your delivery process. Obviously, you want to find a balancing act of in-depth review without delaying code review. And one of the things we see as contributions decrease, the number of unreviewed merges often increase. But at the same time, if you have too in-depth contributions, this can also delay your lead time for change. One of the things that drives at the depth of review necessary and the time to review is the amount of changes that go into every pull request. So one of the things we're measuring is the average number of modified lines per contribution. We often will say as software developers, smaller changes more often, pull request early, pull request often. And this is something that allows us to manage and measure how significant the changes are that we're deploying and then understand the depth of collaboration that's important. Another factor here is the number of new lines added. Obviously, new lines of code require more in-depth review because every time you add new code, you can introduce new bugs and new functionality to the code base. So this is something that also drives at the depth of collaborative review that is healthy within a software developer experience and ultimately allows you to assess some of the things that are going into lead time for change, deployment frequency, change failure rate, mean time to recovery. The final group of metrics that we're now adding to the Insights product are around delivery metrics. So these are things like time to handoff. And this is the average time between the first commit that is made in a branch and the branch being actually ready for review. So this gives you a more in-depth understanding of the components of your cycle time. The handoff delay is ultimately the average time that changes are spent waiting for code review. And this is often where we see code review get bottlenecked. This is something that you want to minimize as a handoff delay in the code review process. The sooner you can get code review into the hands of the author, the more effective you can move those changes through the process. The next metric that we're measuring is time to acceptance. And this is the average time that contributions spend in the code review during the selected time period. So this is often a measure of how long in aggregate these code reviews are taking and between the process that they're handed off to code review and when they are accepted and ready for deploy. And then finally, we're looking at the overarching time to delivery. So how long do accepted changes wait before they're actually able to be deployed once they're accepted? A long time to delivery usually means that there's a bit of a bottleneck in the process of deployment. It might mean that your change cycles and your code review are very effective, but there's some reason in releasing that code to production that your team is getting bottlenecked. Within continuous delivery, we want to be able to continuously deploy as quickly as possible and as safely as possible our changes into production environments, and time delivery is a very effective way of measuring and separating that stage of the process from the code review or acceptance stages or even the coding process. And this gives you more granular understanding of what is leading towards the overarching DORA metrics within your organization. All right, now that we're oriented around the different metrics that we've added to the platform, what I want to show you are some of the ways that you can use this data to drill in and really understand, slice and dice, how this data informs your team members and your methodologies. So the first thing that you'll see at the top here is we have a pretty robust search functionality. We have the ability to search across repositories, and here you can see we automatically pull in the repositories that are present in your integration with CTO.ai. You can also search by authors. You can search by CTO.ai users, or when users connect their GitHub accounts to their CTO.ai account, you can see that we create a relationship between those, and you can effectively search across each user identity. And we create a relationship between the activity that happens in GitHub and the activity that is then leveraged in CTO.ai's delivery workflows. The final factor of our search are labels. So you can search across things that are bugs or dependencies. You can see here we have a label for CTO.ai review, which is an upcoming feature that we'll be talking about that help you with cycle time and ensuring that every developer gets code review using our new AI code review that we'll be talking about soon. Once you create these filters, what you can do is you can save these filters or share them. So for example, I have a few saved searches here. Let's just drill in and take a look specifically at my user and some of the changes that I've been making. This might be used by any team member to get a sense of how their delivery is impacting the overall team's performance. So here you can see I filtered by the author of KC. I have the ability to share this report by directly copying a link and sharing that with another team member. I might want to use this ahead of one of my one-on-ones with my manager to help highlight some of the work I've been doing or some of the challenges I've been having. I might use this in other regards to share across the team things that I think might warrant improvement for a given repo. But ultimately, we can share by links, or we can create a more robust report that can be shared over email or to the team in Slack. Again, email might be used for a manager. Slack might be used for a retrospective. I can select different users by email or channels by Slack, and I can even schedule these and set repeating motions for these. Quite often what we're seeing is team members will use these in the context of one-on-ones with their managers, or they might be using at the end of a sprint to do a bit of a retrospective and use this data to help drive at the discussionary points that allow them to discuss continuous improvements into their software delivery process. Now, if I want to filter and save these searches just for myself, I have a private search menu here that I can save. One of the things that we often are doing is allowing people to filter by multiple different repositories, multiple different authors. For example, I could look at my contributions with this particular repository. Finally, I'm just going to start to talk a little bit about something we are calling Kudos, which is another new feature that we're releasing and announcing today. So here we have a Kudos report where I'm looking at work that was done between the periods of January 24th and February 22nd for the given team. We can see all of these different reports here. What's happened here is we've already gone ahead and saved this into the report section of CTO.ai as a recurring report. And when we come in and look at these different reports, one of the things we can see is all of the logs that have been generated for these reports. We can see failed or successful reports. If I just order these based on the time frame, one of the things I can do is do a quick view and see the metrics that are part of that report historically. We tend to retain these reports for about 3 months, so you have a long time to go back, but you can always generate historical reports. Now, if I just take a look at one of these reports that have been scheduled to send to me in my email, we have this demo report over here that I generated ahead of the call for that Kudos report period. Now, what we see here in the report are the 12 metrics, in addition to DORA metrics, 16 metrics total for the time range from January to February that I highlighted. You can see here all of the metrics that we just talked about that have been snapshotted as part of this email, and also the deployment status. But what we're introducing today is this new digest at the bottom that we're calling Kudos. The idea of Kudos is we want to help you identify the best performing repositories across each of the DORA metrics. And so what we do when you generate these reports is we run an analysis across the 4 key DORA metrics, and we highlight to you the first, second, and third performing repositories across your search criteria for that given repository. So here we can see that this particular repo here performed 11% better than all of the other repos for the change lead time metric. We can also see the second and third place metrics. As we scroll down, we can see similarly that we bring to the front deployment frequency. So we can see this repo had 16 deployments on an average deployment frequency of less than a minute. We can also see the next one, which is 12 deployments. And down here, we can see that this repo here had 8 deployments and performed 78% better than the median. The idea here is if we look at these across the metrics of change lead time, deployment frequency, failed deployment rate, and change recovery time, you can start to see aspects of your code base and repos that might be performing better than other repos. And then what that allows you to do in your retrospectives or as part of discussionary progress with your team is drill into what's working in those repos so that you can replicate more of it. Unfortunately, we don't highlight poor performing repositories. And this is a decision that we've made because what we're trying to do with this data is reinforce what's working so that you can do more of it. At the end of the day, what insights are intended to do is help you identify the highest performing aspects of your code base and processes so that you can continuously improve developer experience. Our goal is not to measure developer productivity, but to help you measure the developer experience and then reinforce it to help more developers gain more experience across repositories through simplified developer workflows and golden pathways from code to cloud. All right, I hope that brings you up to speed today with some of the new features that we've introduced to the delivery insights part of the CTO.ai platform. As I said earlier, CTO.ai is a modern CI/CD platform that aims to help you streamline the software delivery process through the build, preview, test, and deployment of your software. But then it allows you to generate data that can be used within these reporting structures to really drill in, run those tests and experience so that you can maximize the efficiency of your developer experience. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us today. We'd be happy to show you more about how to plug CTO.ai into your source code and your software delivery process. We have out-of-the-box integrations with GitHub and Slack. It's very easy to set up so that you can start getting data at the center of your decision-making and optimizing developer experience. Look out for more updates from us soon, as we'll be talking more about how you can use this data in areas like AI code review to drive a sooner lead time for change and a better overall developer experience for your team. I'm Kyle Campbell. We'll talk to you soon.